Hey viewers and viewers, my name is General Red Strategist and welcome back to Sir, You're Being Hunted. Episode 566 now, isn't it? So last episode, I failed at the friggin' the alternating weapons challenge once again. Second attempt did not go well. So what I'm thinking is, I'll give it a third attempt, see if I can do better at it. Not in this episode, that is. This isn't my third attempt at that particular challenge. I'm saying I'll give it a third attempt sometime in the not too distant future to see if I can actually beat it, and hopefully it'll be third time lucky. Knowing me, I'll probably get shot to pieces again, but if I do fail a third time at that challenge, I think I'm just going to put it to bed and move on to something else. So yeah, that didn't go too well now, did it, ladies and gentlemen? Now, it is a Sunday afternoon, ladies and gents, as when I record this, Sunday the 21st of May. And it's just gone 3:30 in the afternoon. It's a nice warm day, so naturally I thought I'll sit indoors and play video games, because why the hell not? Plus, I kind of actually needed to do some recording because my queue is getting a bit low and all that. So I need to just get some content that I can have pre-uploaded into the queue, so it's there in the background, ready to go, and whatever else have you. Also, though, I really wanted to actually do another Podcast Style Sir episode for this one, because I've got something kind of on my brain, and you know what I'm like. When I get something on the brain, I feel like I have to talk about, I end up just doing a Sir Being Hunted episode, in which I talk about it. So last night, Saturday the 20th, when I was sort of sat down in the evening, just sort of chilling out, about 9 o'clock-ish, in the evening that is, and thinking to myself, how shall I spend this evening? Shall I just find something interesting to watch on YouTube? Nice long video or something and just relax? So I did, and but it wasn't the video I actually watched was something I wouldn't have expected I would have ended up watching. So, in summary, basically I ended up watching this video called MyHouse.WAD, Doom's Most Terrifying Mod, something like that is what it was called. I may be paraphrasing the exact title a little bit, but basically it was a sort of hour and 42 minutes about a mod for Doom. Now, admittedly, this is obviously a mod for a game that I've never played. I've never played Doom. So, I just thought, I look back on that, I think to myself, man, why did I watch an hour and 42 minute video about a mod I've never heard of for a game that I've never played before? But I did, because something about it just sort of attracted my attention, to put it that way, when I looked at the thumbnail. So for anyone who doesn't know what it's about, it's basically a spotlight on what I believe is probably one of the most infamous mods that has been made for Doom. And how do I kind of summarise, really, what happened in that video? I mean, obviously go and search for this video yourself, ladies and gentlemen. It's interesting. Even if, like me, you've never played Doom before, and you've never even heard of this mod, even if you don't know anything about it, it is a trip. It is really interesting, not least because it really is a testament to the creativity of whoever made that mod. Just the sheer ideas underpinning it is crazy, it's really weird. But in essence, MyHouse.WAD is a custom map for Doom that was released, and on the face of it, it just looks like a pretty standard single level map where somebody has recreated a house that they were familiar with from their youth in Doom's engine. At least that's what it appears like. But then, the more and more you play it, the more and more you start to find weird things in it. And suddenly, before you know it, this map turns into this whole fucking story, this cryptic story, told through weird sort of sections where kind of the story is told to you through somewhat cryptic visuals and things like that. And there's like crazy shenanigans going on within this sort of the confines of this house map, and then suddenly it's like doors start appearing where doors were not previously, the geometry starts to become impossible, things like that. It's so fascinating. It's really, really something. I saw people in the comments sort of commenting things like, it's like if someone created a horror version of the Beginner's Guide or a horror version of Stanley Parable in Doom or something like that. And yeah, I can see where they were coming from when they said things like that, because essentially, like I say, it's just like mind-bending surrealism, but with always a hint of something slightly sinister underneath. God, it's well worth watching, ladies and gentlemen. But one of the sort of big inspirations, which the video I watched pretty much acknowledges, behind the creation of this map was the sort of surreal horror story House of Leaves. Now, I'm sure many of you have heard of House of Leaves. I have. I've never read it, though. But from what I understand, the basic premise is about a house which... basically, the geometry of the house, the new occupants who move into it, they discover that the geometry of it is completely impossible. The longer they live there, the more they start to discover weird shit in terms of like corridors and almost like maze-like structures within the house that can't possibly exist. Things like this. It's really weird. But apparently, House of Leaves is also sort of... it's a curious book because apparently the way it's written in a kind of like a style that satirises academic writing with all like, you know, kind of footnotes and sort of weird layouts on the page with like boxes with sort of side points and things like that. So apparently it's one of those books that sometimes people kind of can be put off a bit by it, by the way it's kind of laid out. But I don't know. The more I sort of read about House of Leaves, the more I think maybe that's a book I should buy at some point and read, because it certainly does sound very, very interesting. And so, like I say, that brings us to, obviously, MyHouse.WAD, this custom map for Doom, because, like I say, as the video I watched acknowledges, you can clearly see the House of Leaves inspirations in it, where it's sort of like the house, weird stuff starts to happen the more and more you get into it. And, of course, it's one of those things where, in order to trigger certain things, in order to trigger the weirdness in it, you have to do some like very specific things that normally you might not think to do. So as a result, you know, if you're just a casual player, you might just play that map and think that, you know, that's all there is to it. It's just a house. You explore it, you kill a load of enemies, then you find the key to the exit and you end the level, and then it's just back to regular Doom. But no, there's way more to it. In fact, a better game, I think, that might serve as a better analogy would be like Doki Doki Literature Club, for instance. So if you've seen Doki Doki Lit Club, you know what the deal is. In fact, even if you haven't really seen it, you probably already know what the deal with it is. Essentially something that on the surface seems really sort of plain and straightforward actually turns out to be horrifying and really surreal and eerie and sinister. And that's exactly what MyHouse.WAD is. So essentially that video I watched is one of those kind of YouTube gems which every so often gets recommended to you, and even though it's something that, you know, you've never, even though it's about a subject that you know nothing about, you've never sort of done anything to do with Doom in the past, anything like that, something about it still grips you and it hooks you in. And it's the presentation style of the video also is pretty good. Because the narrator, the guy who made the video, certainly does do a decent job, I would say, even though he's not a professional voice actor, of really sort of conveying his emotions, I suppose, when he first played it, and he realised that there was way more to this map than met the eye, and whatever else have you. Oh god, it makes me sometimes think, the amount of skill, though, in terms of programming for that map, because apparently there is, there's certain things in MyHouse.WAD which are striking in terms of clearly the developer of that mod had to sort of mess around with aspects of the game's underlying code and the game's underlying assets and things like that in order to get it to work. So when you sort of appreciate that, you can really admire it for the amount of skill and time it must have taken to develop it. So now it kind of makes me wish, you know, someone would produce something like that in RTCW with GTK Radiant. And I say that, of course, because, you know, as of this moment, RTCW is likely to be going on hiatus, with the fact that I'm currently running out of add-ons to play, especially new ones and all that. So, yeah. You know, if I had the skills in map-making software for RTCW like GTK Radiant, I would love, absolutely love, to try and create something like MyHouse.WAD, sort of like the RTCW equivalent of that. I don't know what it would be about, but I'm sure you can think of something. I mean, I suppose, I kind of wonder if maybe, you know, people who create those kind of things, like MyHouse.WAD and stuff like that, I wonder what their sort of creative process is. I'd love to sort of learn more about that in terms of when the person who made that started out. Did they kind of like already have an idea of where they wanted it to go? So did they have kind of like a specific end goal in mind? Or did they just start out with a really sort of simple concept in terms of, let's build a recreation of a house that I knew from my youth in Doom, and then over time did it sort of grow? Did the ideas of turning it into a kind of surreal horror map with weird little secrets and things that happen, did that sort of start to snowball later? And did that sort of build then into how it ultimately turned into a bit of a sort of story about two people who are apparently, spoilers, deceased? Really weird and interesting. But yeah, I'd love to know the creative process behind things like that. And I suppose similarly, I'd love to know like the creative process behind other stuff that, you know, is designed to initially kind of take you in and then hits you with surreal horror. Like, you know, Doki Doki Literature Club, which I've mentioned already. Another example. It would be fascinating to hear from Team Salvato in terms of how Doki Doki started out. Was it originally the idea of just doing a kind of bog standard romantic visual novel, but then did things sort of snowball from there? Or did they always have in mind that it was going to turn into a weird sort of glitchy, surreal horror? Who knows? That's what I'm just sort of curious and wondering about. But yeah, like I say, I just wanted to do another podcast style episode, because you know what I'm like. When I get something on the brain and I really want to talk about it, I just do a Sir episode. That way I can just get it off my chest. So yeah, go and watch you know, the video, MyHouse.WAD, Doom's Most Terrifying Mod, or whatever it's called. If you just search MyHouse.WAD, Doom's Most Terrifying Mod, you'll probably find it, even if I have just paraphrased the name slightly. You'll find it. It'll probably be one of the top YouTube search results, no doubt. So go and have a look at that, because it's really worth watching, even if, like I say, like me, you never played Doom, and you barely know anything about it, and you've never heard of this mod before. So yeah, that's literally all I really wanted to talk about in this episode, ladies and gentlemen. So we're actually going to wrap up here. I know this is only a short one, but yeah, like I say, it's a bit of filler content on the channel in the meantime. Let me know, though, in the comments, any Doom players out there, have you ever tried MyHouse.WAD? Did you find the secrets within it? How many of them did you find? Or were you one of those sorts of players who maybe just played through it and now you're watching this thinking, wait a minute, I played that map, but I don't remember any secrets or weirdness in it. Is there more to it than I remembered, than I saw? Well, let me know in the comments, ladies and gentlemen. You know, that's actually an interesting subject, though. Sorry, I'm digressing. I know I just said we were going to wrap up here, but I know people probably would ask me, would I ever be interested in playing the Doom games, whether that's the classic or the old ones. And the answer to that, honestly, is maybe. I mean, it's not something I've ever thought about, but I suppose I could always add it to the list of potential things to play at some point in the indeterminate future, were I ever to run out of stuff. Not that I would, because I've got a ton of games in my Steam, GOG and EA Origin libraries that I need to get to. So yeah, who knows? It's a possibility, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, now we'll wrap up. So Facebook and links down below, along with a link to my propagandist channel for anyone interested. You know, sometimes when I do these afternoon recording sessions, it really occurs to me how often many of my words sort of slur together. Because I'm not really in the right sort of state of mind to record, but I just got some. When I get something on mind, I just got to talk, so I do a recording. But there you go. Yes, Facebook and Twitter links down below, along with a link to my propagandist channel for anyone interested. And if you enjoyed, a like is of course always appreciated, and all that jazz. But on that, I'm signing off now. Goodbye, everybody. No further in. Why? Alright, I'm bracing myself. I'll be right there. Will you? I don't trust that you will be. I don't want to be in here. Have you got fucking doors that are remotely operated or something? Christ almighty, it's just a person, but I scared the shit out of it. It was a fucking ghost or something. What's wrong with you, woman? Right, well there's your D. Your package D. Christ, God. It was so weird, it looked so flat. Hey, what are you doing? That package. It's a bed frame. You're going to help me build it, right? I didn't sign up for this. I'm just the delivery person. God, why are you like that? Why are you the way you are? Good lord. Alright, fine. Where are we sent? So, do you not have lights in this fucking place?